Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure?
It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Hey, I am feeling good today. I hope you are too. Woke up feeling refreshed this morning. Was a really late day yesterday. Really late day. So I'm getting a little bit of a late start. About like 13 hours yesterday and was up late. But I'm here now. I hear we've got Lynn is back. It is great to see Lynn right here. I see Lynn already in the chat. So welcome to my home. Welcome to the office and welcome to the morning grind. We're going to be taking a look. Oh, where'd my physical rule book go? I'm not sure. I've got the digital rule book up here. We're taking a look at Advanced HeroQuest. We're doing a study. We're doing a series that we're doing a study on these adventure games. Advanced HeroQuest, then Warhammer Quest. We're going to take a look at a couple of others maybe that have been mentioned in the chat, and then also Shadows of Brimstone. So that we're doing a series here, and we're going to get to the magic section of Advanced HeroQuest today. So let's see who we got here. James Bacon is here. James Bacon. Zero the Blade is here. Good morning. So we just said Lynn is back. Excellent to have Lynn. Sable Phoenix is here. Hey. Let's see. Oh, Sable Phoenix is monitoring eBay for the Smallville RPG. I didn't know there was one. I remember watching Smallville with my girlfriend when it was on. and coming out. Hey, Jason. She was a fan. Hey, Robert. Robert's got great reporting on progress with the AI running the SRD. Hey, Charlie. Good morning. All right, we have great crew this morning. Lots of people and stuff, a lot of stuff going on in the chat. Okay. Okay. So I'm hoping to get a lot of progress made this afternoon on a bunch of different projects they're working on and be able to report more material probably on Wednesday. I need to actually, I think, come up with a new morning messages to describe everything that we have going on. But at the moment, we're just going to jump right into this, I believe. So let's see. I was going to talk about. Oh, here's my cup. Let's do a breathe and sip. I got so excited I didn't even pour my drink this morning. So let's breathe and sip, and then let's talk about some HeroQuest. Hey, Mike. Good morning, Mike. All right. Let's see. All right, I'm poured up. Here we go. I got Cultist coffee this morning right here. So let's pour. And let's breathe and sip. 2 deep breaths. Deep inhales, complete exhales, and then take a sip of your favorite beverage this morning. This is the mental health portion of the show. Let's breathe. And sip. There we go. All right. Great to be here this morning. All right, so we were talking about, I've got some notes from last week, because we had just been talking about the advanced HeroQuest combat system last, I believe that was Wednesday. And I wanted to take some notes, or I took some notes after the stream about things that advanced HeroQuest combat gets right, at least according to me. Like, what is this doing right? And what are some of the things that it's doing wrong? Or what are at least some of the things that I liked about it? I liked that it does have the relative skill of combatants. So this covered the relative skill of combatants because you've got weapon skill. And then there's a table that tells you when one person of this weapon skill fights another person of that weapon skill, what you need to roll to hit. So it handles relative skill of combatants pretty well. It has the difference between skill in hitting versus damage. So this one, which allows you to create different types of fighters or different types of characters. So we've got weapon skill. Okay, that weapon skill is just telling you how easy it is for you to hit your target with your weapon. So, and that could be with bow skill as well. But damaging your target is a different thing. So that allows you to create different types of characters. Really high, you could have a really high skill but low strength kind of character. Or alternatively, you could have really low skilled but high strength kinds of characters. So this one handles that by sorting that out, by separating those two things. Skill in hitting the opponent versus how effective you are at actually damaging them. I liked that. So there is no active defense here. So we have this love-hate relationship with active defense here because I tend to prefer it. Like if you were going to just go from 0, my experience with HeroQuest as a kid and then a lot of GURPS I tend to have a bias toward having an active defense. But as we've looked at the different rules, oftentimes the math behind the active defense just means that you should incorporate it all into one roll anyway. So there's no active defense here, but it resolves all the attacks in 2 rolls. Like how many different rolls do you really need to make in order to resolve an attack? Especially if you're going to be making a lot of attacks, like in an adventure game like this. You know, in GURPS, you've got to hit, active defense, and then damage. So you've got 3 different rolls you can go through. And sometimes that might be okay if you are just dealing with one attack. Maybe you're not playing a combat heavy game, and then all of a sudden somebody pulls a knife or somebody pulls out a gun and tries to shoot somebody. Using more dice to resolve exactly what happens in that case, probably not that bad. But if you're doing something like playing an adventure game, we're going to be killing a lot of orcs. How many dice rolls do you really need or want in order to resolve an attack? So 2 seems like the upper limit. I mean, you might be able to do it in 1, but some kind of hit roll and then damage roll, which is pretty classic. To hit roll and damage roll. They resolve this in 2 rolls because you've got your skill to hit and then your damage. What I did think was interesting here was that there were 2 opportunities to crit. This game presented 2 opportunities to crit, and each crit was relevant to the type of roll that made it. So a critique that I have of something like the Dungeons and Dragons system where you can crit and everybody loves rolling a natural 20. Okay, natural 20. Everybody has a party. Everybody screams, yes, okay, natural 20. Okay, double dice damage. You could roll a natural 20, making a critical hit, and you could still roll damage that is very low and less than the amount of damage you could have done on a non-critical hit. And it seems like that's one of the things that is often house ruled. They're like, okay, it seems like, okay, if you roll a 20, you do max damage plus another roll. I think I've seen in the chat people talking about that. So that way, if you crit, you're always going to do more damage than you would have on a non-crit. So this one in Advanced HeroQuest, if you were watching last week, you can crit on your to hit roll. And if you crit on your to hit roll, then you get another attack. It's not guaranteed that that attack is going to hit, but if you're rolling on your to hit roll and you crit, then you get to roll another attack. I guess that's kind of like confirming the crit from 3rd edition. But if you roll well. Oh, hey, Brett. Good morning. Happy Sunday. So if you roll well on to hit, then you get another attack. But then there's also critting on the damage. You are rolling the number of dice according to your weapon to try to roll over the target's toughness. If you roll a 12, that's a crit. It's automatic. It automatically scores a hit, but I think it probably would anyway, as far as because of a 12. But then you also get to immediately re-roll that to try for another point of damage. So it's got an exploding to hit crit on the damage, which inflicts more damage. So I like that. The damage isn't very explodey because you're rolling D12s. You're rolling several D12s, and I think they can continue to explode, a chain explosion. But it seems like that's something that's not going to happen too often, but it does do both. So that I did like. So Sable says, I actually took Indestructible Terran Pound's advice and just swapped 5e vulnerability mechanics with crit mechanics. So crits do double damage on your entire damage roll, while vulnerability merely means you roll 2x weapon damage dice. Crits do double damage on your entire damage roll. Vulnerability means 2x damage dice roll. Okay. So this is a better house roll for that. Sable says, feels much better that way, but now that Nimble 5e is coming out, I don't see myself using anything but their system of exploding crits. I'm looking forward to taking a look at Nimble 5e. So I put in the Discord server. Hey, I should put a link to the Discord server. I put a link. I put a link to the Nimble campaign. I did back it. I just got the Tomocrat. I just got the digital editions, but I'm interested. Are they going to have a license? Raven Keep Discord. I looked into it a little bit, enough to be interested enough that I wanted to back it, and I wanted to get a hold of it. So they seem like they're doing something really nice here. Let me hang on, I'm trying to do something. Okay. Well, me too. That's why I just went with the digital versions. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to pick up, if I like it, maybe I'll have an opportunity to pick up the physical versions later. Okay, but my negatives here, well, this is a slight negative. So the negatives are that crits are entirely random. So like if you're trying to crit on the to hit roll, okay, you're not more likely to crit if you are much more highly skilled than your opponent. Now, in this, I suppose it's not bad, but it's just telling you that everybody, whether they're bad guys or good guys or whatever type of good guy you are, you're going to be able to roll a second attack on a 12, right? So no matter which one you are, you get to roll a second attack on a 12. And also your damage crits are entirely random. Because if you're rolling 12s, you get to keep going. The damage doesn't bother me quite as much. And like I said, this is kind of a small complaint anyway. But the damage being completely random, whether or not it's crits and continues to explode, that doesn't bother me quite as much. But it seems like it would be more interesting to try to incorporate some way where the relative weapon skill of the combatants could increase the chance that you are going to be able to crit and therefore follow up with a second attack against an opponent if you are higher skilled. And you might be able to do that. I thought my physical copy of the rule book was laying around here. I thought it was right down there. Oh, well. But you might be able to do that on this table where you can, you've got your weapon skill, your weapon skill up there, and then you look at your opponent's weapon skill, and then it gives you the what you're supposed to roll. I don't see why on that same table you couldn't indicate which one was a crit, or give you two numbers, one to hit, and then to your crit is something. So you could say that a crit is always on a 12 when you're rolling to hit, but then if your weapon skill exceeds the weapon skill of the opponent by a certain amount, then instead of having, to hit, if your to hit is an 8 and then your skill is your critical is a 12, it could be 8-12, and then the next 8/12, and the next one could be 7/11. And that way you would know that at that particular threshold, not only do you hit more often, but you also crit on 11s and 12s. So I think that's a change that could be made with relatively little problem, because it would just be giving you more information on the existing chart that you've already got. Hey, Dungeon Master. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And likewise, you have random fumbles. Okay, the fumbles allow your opponent to attack. So to me, it's not really a fumble. They call it a fumble. But when I think of like fumbling a weapon, I think about going back to MERP, where you're tripping over imaginary deceased turtles or stabbing yourself in the foot with your weapon or something like that. So this does call it a fumble. And that's always if you roll a 1. It's not skill related again. So everybody fumbles, to use their term, at the exact same rate. Okay, we're going to fumble on a 1. But what a fumble does is it allows your opponent to attack. Your opponent immediately gets to roll against you. Yeah, imaginary deceased turtle, that's actually in the critical table in MERP. I remember it ever since I read it years ago. Like you trip over an imaginary deceased turtle and stab yourself through the leg with your own sword or something like that. So I think you could probably use the same thing or use a similar system where you decrease the chances, since it's your opponent is going to get an attack on you. It seems like, again, you could use the same slash system on that one line of the table, and that would tell you what your fumble would be. Maybe it's going to give you 3 numbers. Maybe that's too much. Yeah, they're random. They're going to randomly allow the opponent to attack you instead. What if your opponent fumbles the fumble? You get the attack back. And maybe having 3 numbers sitting there on the to hit table was too much. But you would have the first number be your fumble number, the next number be your to hit number, and the next number be your crit number. And then those would change depending on the relative skill of the attackers or the combatants. And I also did have an idea. I talked about this briefly in the Discord server about strength. It seemed very natural and very Warhammer-like to cross-reference strength and toughness in order to figure out what your value is. The higher the strength you are, if you're doing a relative weapon skill, you're comparing those in order to get a number. You should also do relative strength and toughness, I think. Seems like that. And I didn't understand why they didn't do that when I was looking at that on Wednesday, but later I was thinking about that. Okay, why is strength not used when calculating damage? They would be, and I realized, your strength would be weapon specific. So your weapon skill is something that is static. I mean, it might go up between quests or whatever, but your weapon skill is relatively static. So you can have just on that one line. And then likewise, your bow skill, your ballistic skill is static, pretty much static for the game. And so you can reference one line. But in Warhammer, at least the version that I played, your strength is also modified by your weapon. And so, like, a longbow might have a skill of like a strength of 3. The gun, the pistol might have a strength, or the rifle or the musket might have a strength of 4. I remember when the knights ride in on lances, they get +2 strength. So they might be strength 3 knights, but when they ride in, they're strength 5. Spears gave you +1 strength when you were charging with cavalry. So there was, and the halberd, the double-handed weapons, they modified your strength, which gave you a higher strength to be able to get through higher toughness enemies. So then I realized, that's probably why, or that could be why they decided to not try to put all of that, to incorporate that, because they've got just the half a page character sheet. They're not using the full matrix. Don't go and consult the full table for your to hits and things like that. They wanted you to just have the line to reference, which I think is a good idea. They pre-calculated all of that, and then that is sitting there with the reference on your sheet. But if you're carrying, a pistol and a spear and a dagger, your strength, according to what I understand is classic, Warhammer, would change depending on which weapon you're using. And so you wouldn't have a clean way. You would need, if you're just doing it line by line, you'd need a different table line for every weapon. And that's probably too much. Like, that's too much on my character sheet. We're not sending you to the main matrix. That's too much. Putting all of that for each different weapon is too much. We're running out of room on the character sheet. So I think they just roll the number of dice over toughness and inflict the number of wounds that roll over that. That's why I think they did that. And in fact, now it makes me wonder if they incorporated strength behind the back door. Mike might be able to reference this. I want to look at, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to take a look at equipment, wherever I can find equipment, because it is probably the case that the higher, like, double-handed swords and halberds and things like that allow you to roll more damage dice to potentially score more wounds. But you do have a strength characteristic on the character sheet, and I was wondering if those higher strength weapons might roll more dice to try to roll over their toughness and inflict more wounds. If that's the case, then they've kind of included strength then kind of in the back door or through the back door. So let's see, between expeditions, embarking on the next trip, let me go down here and see where there would be like here's where you buy more weapons and what's your, that's magic weapons. Oh, wait. Okay, so actually, Mike over here says, one thing that I've not made an opinion about in this game is that causing wounds uses a different system's successes as compared to the rest of the game. It does go to a different system, so that's true. You're using a dice pool to inflict wounds using a different system, counting successes as compared to rolling over, right? So Mike says more of a bell curve for wounds than the rest of the game. Yes. And I mean, is that a problem? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. It's true. It's a different system. But I mean, if it works, why? I don't think that has to be a problem. Because when I looked at when I was looking at strength, I was like, how are you going to resolve different wounds? And it's done through a dice pool. So no, okay, over here. Hang on, let me add this in. This is telling me magic weapons right here. We'll probably be looking at this, but I noticed right here, this table below shows the damage dice for each combination of weapon and strength. Normal rules and restrictions for the different types of weapons apply. Roll the following table to see the weapon type. So, okay, so if you find a magic spear, you look at your strength over here, and this tells you the number of dice to roll. That looks like what they're doing here. So in that case, the higher strength you are more effective at hewing down high toughness creatures because you're going to be able to roll more dice. So if you've got a high strength, if you got a strength of 9 and you're using a dagger, a magic dagger anyways, magic dagger, you're rolling 6 dice to try to inflict wounds. If you're only strength 3 and 4, even though you're using a magic axe, you're only rolling 3 dice to inflict wounds. So there does seem like, there is still a relationship between strength and toughness, and they're trying to do it in what might be a more elegant kind of way here. So that means that if I'm looking at this dagger, that was the magic table. But I bet this damage dice is computed then. We've got a strength 6 warrior right here with a sword rolling 4 damage dice. We've got a strength 4 wizard with a dagger rolling 1 damage die. So that might be computed. Between expeditions, we're going to look at that. New equipment. Okay, let's look at that just briefly. Well, no, this says just cost table. So dagger, spear, 10 gold coins. That doesn't tell me the stats of the spear. Okay, well, anyway, that's what I'm thinking right now. Oh, okay, look, I told you, I thought Mike would be on top of it. 44. Okay, yes. Okay. So that's exactly how we've got here. Oh, look, and we are calculating criticals and fumbles. So there's a lot to this game. I think there's a lot of crunch here. And by the way, I don't know if James Bacon is still watching at the moment, but I was watching James Bacon's conversation live stream on role playing and discussing the difference between the get into the character kind of mode of playing versus and a theatrical kind of storytelling versus something more like this, that like if you've got a low you're playing the wizard or the barbarian or whatever here, but you're still trying to make your choices, and what type of game this is versus like a storytelling kind of a game. I think that's worth talking about more, James. But yeah, okay, so right here, so if you have a sword, the number of damage dice. So it says for hand-to-hand weapons, cross-reference your hero's strength against the type of weapon to find out how many damage dice you roll to hit. The table also lists the score needed to score a critical hit and a fumble. So critical hits and fumbles are dice specific or weapon specific. So they're not referencing skill, but they could be 11s or 12s. Yeah, I remember they could be 11s or 12s or 1s and 2s based on the type of weapon. So the halberd will fumble on a 1 or a 2, but crit on 11 or 12. Crit allowing you to roll another attack, but you're going to fumble on a 1 or a 2. Certain weapons have a minimum strength. I figured that was going to be the case then. A hero with less than the minimum is too weak to wield that weapon with any effect. Large weapons are heavy and score additional crits, or score crits on 11 and 12. But fumble on 1 and 2. So if you're using a sword, the number of damage dice you're going to roll is dependent upon your strength. So if you've got a strength of 3 to 4, like you can't even use a sword if you've got a strength of 1 or 2. But 3 to 4, you can use it. You can roll 2 dice. Strength of 3, strength of 5, roll 3 dice. Strength of 6, 4, and so forth. Which is going to allow you to throw more damage dice to try to exceed the target's toughness and therefore inflict more wounds. Okay, I mean, I got you. All right, okay. So it does indirectly use strength. And so, that's not bad because of the problem that I thought they were trying to solve. That, this is too much information to put on the character sheet and too great a matrix, and I don't want to have to put a matrix for every weapon. This allows you to pre-calculate that information based on weapon and your strength so that you're just ready to roll at the table, which I like. When you find out the target's toughness. That makes sense. What is role-playing and why is 4D role-playing the only role-playing? Oh, is that? Oh, that's Bacon's 4D role playing is the only way. Bacon's tagline. Yeah, please do hit the like button. Okay, so we solved that problem, or figured that information out. So we're keeping notes. I need to get the sheet of paper out so we can take some notes on magic. Let's see. Let's see. Magic. So we were Hazard's the game master. Combat. Oh, we went through combat. I like things, particularly if you have pre-generated characters that you're using. I like you can have a whole lot of depth on the back end behind the scenes, because when you're designing the game or whatever, you can go to a lot of trouble to calculate the statistics as they should be, but they're just sitting there and ready for you to pick up and play. Yeah, as crit possibility expands, so does fumble possibility, right? Oh, okay. So Sable Finks is well aware of my criticisms. I'm not familiar with what that is. I guess I missed that part of the conversation. All right, I got magic right here. All right. So this is notes on magic. All right. I'm going to get a better pen here. All right, so how is magic used in this? Magic is the most powerful force in the Warhammer world. There's many practitioners. Oh, I was going to do something else before I do this. I'm going to have to look up what this is. So Bacon says, I agree with some of their ideas superficially, but there's a lot that becomes exposed when you dig in for discovery. Much of it is arbitrary and contradictory. I'm going to go over here and hand out some memberships. That's what I was going to do. I was getting ready for that earlier. All right, let's go over here. If I can find the button. All right, 5 memberships going out. 4 memberships. This is not under my control. YouTube, I'm hitting the 5 button and YouTube distributes them. So here we go. Let's see what happens. Who gets a membership? Nathaniel. All right, Nathaniel did. Dungeon Master did. Drudenfuzz did. Joel did. And KRS did. Okay, so I know a lot of these people here. So Nathaniel, you got it. Dungeon Master got it. Drudenfuzz got it. Joel Lallier got it. And then KRS. I don't think I've seen KRS in the chat. So if you're here, KRS, say hi. I'm hoping one of the things I've got to do, I decided to I'm working on the virtual tabletop for the Cultist RPG. So I wanted to play some games last week, but I've got to get this virtual tabletop done so that we can actually play that as well. So I'm hoping that we actually get to play games this week. That's one of the things I'm going to look at scheduling this afternoon, but I got to get the virtual tabletop up and running. And so if you're a channel member, you'll get notification about playing games online. Maybe we can play some HeroQuest. Okay. All right. So now let's look at magic. Magic is the most powerful force in the Warhammer world. There are many practitioners of this mysterious art, from the simplest magician who can mend broken pots and heal coughs and colds, to the greatest archmage who can call men back from the dead, raise cities, and... Oh, hey, Joel. There we go. Joel. Hey, Joel. With the greatest archmage, magic draws its energy from the roiling mass of chaos that enters the world through two vast breaches in reality at the North and South Poles. So this is all of our in-world universe information here. A trained magician is able to see this raw magic as seething clouds of color. When he casts a spell, the magician taps into the source of power, focusing the controlled and untamed magical energies to achieve the desired effect. Okay, you've got 10 colleges of magic. Each college teaches the same fundamentals of magic, but specializes in drawing its energy from only one of the colors of magic. A jade wizard, for example, draws on magic that is green in hue, while celestial wizard has blue as his color. The magicians of the 10 colleges are distinguished by the magical symbols, by the colors of their clothes, and by different philosophies. Each of the colleges has their own spells. Some of the spells are very similar in effect, while only their casting rituals and incantations are different. Others are specific to one college. In this rule book, we've only covered the spells of the bright wizards. Other spells will be covered in supplements and in White Dwarf. Oh, Mike isn't. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Mike. Mike just became a member. Oh, James Bacon likes bright wizards for life. Each of the colleges has its own spells. Oh, he just said that. The bright wizards have orange and red and orange as their colors. The symbols are the key and the lock, the magical key of secrets and the lock upon the unknown. Bright wizards are traditionally always animated by some idea or plan, never able to sit still for long without looking uncomfortable. They're hot-blooded and warlike, gaining vigor from the clash of battle. They're masters of fire magic and are popularly assumed to be obsessed with fire and heat. Their houses are often uncomfortably hot and stuffy, and they forever complain about the cold during the winter. As they learn their craft, all spellcasters compile a spell book. This contains those spells for which the wizard knows the correct formula and signs, as taught to them by tutors, fellow magicians, or as taken from the other wizard spell books. Okay, lots of background. Burning Head. At the beginning of the game, the player controlling the hero wizard should take the bright wizard spell book. He begins the game with 4 spells, but can learn more after each expedition. See between expeditions. Weapons and armor. Wizards cannot wear any sort of armor or carry any weapon other than a dagger, with the exception of a magical rune sword. Weapons and armor disrupt a wizard's aura and make it impossible for him to draw on the magical energies around him. There are spell components, but I don't think they're too detailed here. The spell components are magical objects which the wizard must have to cast the spell. As the spell is cast, the spell component is consumed. In some cases, more than one component is required. The wizard starts the game with a number of components, with the components of 4 spells. He may choose which after studying his spell book, noting which component he selects on his character sheet. So you actually do have to specify exactly what spell components you have, or at least the spell components for what spell. So any mix is possible for any from 4 different components to 4 of the same. Oh, thank you, Mike. Mike says it's about time I gave back to Heath for all of that he's created and the community he's curated. Well, thank you very much, Mike. All right, so casting spells. The spellcaster can cast 1 spell per turn. Spells may be cast in exploration and combat turns. Casting a spell uses up the relevant spell component. The wizard player should cross that off. See if I can make this a little bit larger. Maybe a little bit. Spells may be cast in exploration and combat turns. Casting a spell uses up the relevant spell component. The wizard player should cross off the used component from his character sheet. The spell book shows what effect the spell has. If the spell has one component, the caster can move and cast the spell. If it has two components, the wizard is not allowed to move during the turn in which you cast the spell. The intelligence test. The rules for certain spells say that a wizard must make an intelligence test to cast the spell. Okay, so here are this possible different mechanic here that Mike was talking about. Let's see how we take an intelligence test. Well, it's pretty simple. It says roll a die and compare the result to the wizard's intelligence. If the roll is less than or equal to the intelligence, he has passed the test. Well, now, so this is roll under. So you're right. There are quite a few different. We do not have a unified task resolution mechanic or unified action resolution mechanic like I tend to be big on. So in some cases, you've got to roll a die and roll over a number. In other cases, you've got to roll a die and roll equal to or under a number. In other cases, you are rolling a dice pool and trying to count successes. So we do have multiple different types, but of ways to resolve a roll. I guess that's because they wanted, in this case, the scores to be high on your character sheet. If you're the wizard, you need a high intelligence. Okay, that means you're going to be rolling equal to or under, because we're not doing bonuses here. If the roll is greater than the intelligence, he has failed. The wizard may spend a fate point to convert a failed intelligence test to a success. You know, I was thinking about the fate points too. Like it says that a lot of the times the fate points are going to be used to resist damage. Could you adjust that just by increasing the number of wounds that heroes can sustain? It seemed like the heroes couldn't sustain that many wounds compared to the monsters. You know, in ordinary HeroQuest, the heroes have a lot more body points than the monsters do. It didn't seem like that was the case here. It seemed like they were a bit more equivalent. But what if you just boosted the damage of boosted the wounds of the heroes up? Now, of course, then you would still not allow, that would not allow a wizard to spend a fate point in this way. But if it says that most of the time it's used to negate damage, could you just increase them? James says, not only is it not unified, but this feels very hackneyed. Now, of course, I think like the dungeon generation rules are, you know, a completely different animal. But I think this is going to get improved with Warhammer Quest. I think we're going to see it smooth out a lot of edges between this and Warhammer Quest. But this was, it does definitely seem like a product of its time. But James says, which is fine for a board game, honestly. It can be hard to recall when to roll over versus when to roll under. Yeah, you got to look at this and go, okay, so which would be better here, having a high number or a low number? Yeah, because it seems like that would be standardized. Because I can see, yeah, your to hit roll, the lower the to hit number you've got, the better. But you could have reversed those numbers, couldn't you have? If you always wanted to roll under, if you did always want to roll under, you could have reversed your to hit table. Yeah, so you could have done it. Maybe they wouldn't have liked the way that it looked or something. So what are the Bright Wizard Spellbook? Bright Wizard Spellbook. Oh, you know these four at the start of the game. Dragon Armor, Component, Red Dragon. Oh, so it tells you Red Dragon Dust. Casting the dust into the air, the wizard's gesture pulls it into a tightening band of glistening red scales. The segments expand, fuse, and encase the target. The spell may be cast on any one model up in the wizard's death zone. Until the next exploration turn, add +1 to the model's toughness. So, open window, need a silver key. Shedding only a little blood, an eye opens in the flesh of the spellcaster's forehead, an eye with no iris, white or iris, just a glittering green light. With this eye, the wizard may see into a dungeon section that has not already been explored. Pick any potential area that has not been explored behind a door or past a junction, for example. and generate what is there by the normal means. If there are monsters, they will have no idea they have been spied upon. If the hero enters the area with the monsters that have been spied upon, add +3 to the leader's surprise roll. Flames of Death. Fire dust as a component. The wizard casts a sizzling fireball at the enemy. Flames of Death, which engulfs them in a white flame. Place a fireball template, anywhere within the 12 inches of the 12 squares of the caster within his line of sight. Treat this just like a ranged attack. See the combat section. Any models, friendly or enemy, which fall under the fireball template are automatically hit. Roll 5 damage dice to see what effect the hit has. Wow. Okay, so Flames of Death. Well, these are pretty good spells. Okay, so Dragon Armor, increased toughness. That's like your wizard armor. You only get to cast it once, though. You only get what, four components, so you could cast it more than once, but you need more than one component. +1 toughness. Okay, it seems like a lot of people are probably going to take Flames of Death quite a few times. Jason says, I like standardized roll high or roll low. It's not hard to do. Yeah, you could have standardized this in this game. Flames of the Phoenix Feather. The wizard lays his hand upon the bare wounds of a fallen comrade and takes the pain into himself to be consumed by the strength of his magic. By means of this spell, the wizard may heal any wounds lost by any one model, including himself. There must be no other model other than the wounded comrade in the wizard's death zone when he casts this spell. So not even allies. Warhammer magic, Sable says, is a lot more dangerous than D&D magic, both to the target and to the caster. I mean, this one could be a good one with the +3 if you get to surprise the bad guys. I forget all of our rules for surprise. It's not a guaranteed surprise, though. It's just +3 to the leader's surprise roll. I can see people taking I need 3 healing. I need a healing spell, and I need 3 fireballs. So we do have the Bright Key, the Flaming Hand of Destruction, Still Air, Power of the Phoenix. Oh, Power of the Phoenix is from deep within himself, the wizard utters a shout which carries into the void to be heard only by the soul of a fallen comrade, beckoning it back to the body it has left. In this fashion, the wizard may resurrect a dead character. The spell may only be cast the turn after the character is killed. If the wizard passes an intelligence test, the character is returned to life at full strength. If he fails, he will actually cast the soul of the dead person into tortured oblivion. Oh. Yeah, exactly. I noticed that. Yes, so whoever owned this picked Flaming Hand of Destruction, which is red dragon dust. Oh, look. So red dragon dust right here. Oh, so that's interesting. So all of these, all of the first 3, right? First 4. Red dragon dust, silver key, fire dust, phoenix feather. But down here, the bright key also takes silver key. So if you once you start learning some new spells, now I like that. So you're a little bit, it's constraining you on, because I was like, isn't that a lot like spell memorization in like AD&D? It's not calling it spell memorization. It's just telling you to pick the spell components that you want. And that allows you to cast a spell. So when you start off, then yes, spell components are unique to each spell. But as we go down here, I like this. Okay. If you take the silver key and you have the bright key spell, you could cast open window or the bright key. What is the bright key? The wizard clenches his fist tightly, surrounding it with a nimbus with a nimbus of hot light. Then he opens his hand, which will take an enormous effort as if it were encased in rock. The wizard clenches his fist, surrounds it with a nimbus of hot light, then tries to open it. When it's finally opened, the wizard will have created a door where there was none. The player may place a door in the wall of the section in which the wizard stands. If this would lead into an unexplored part of the dungeon and the heroes choose to open it, first roll a die. If the result is 4 or less, there's only solid rock behind the door. Otherwise, create the dungeon behind the door as normal. Okay, this person did take Flaming Hand of Destruction, which requires red dragon dust. The spell transforms the wizard's hands so they burn with an intense magical flame, a grim energy that does not consume its flesh, though it seems to blacken all the while the spell is engaged. In the following combat turn, if the wizard successfully hits his target in combat, the target automatically loses as many wounds as are shown on the roll of 1 die. Do not roll conventional damage die. The spell dies down at the beginning of the next exploration turn. So you're rolling D12. So it's just basically a D12 roll, as I understand it. If you successfully hit, you inflict D12 wounds. Spell components of the constraint. Bacon says, I absolutely love Warhammer Fantasy battles and Warhammer Fantasy role-playing for that reason. Failure is very frequently more interesting than success, and magical failure in the setting is spectacular. We have a flight spell. Inferno of Doom. No, okay. Inferno of Doom requires fire, dust, and a dragon's tooth. A firestorm leaps out of the wizard's outstretched hands, which can render a man to ashes in a few seconds. Place a fireball template anywhere within 12 squares of the caster within his line of sight. Treat this just like ranged attacks. See the combat section. Any models, friendly or enemy, which fall under the fireball template are automatically hit. Roll 7 damage dice to see what the effect of the hit has. Before casting the spell, the wizard must make an intelligence test. If it has failed, only 5 damage dice can be rolled. So that's like an improved fireball. Improved flames of death. Courage. Oh, swift wind and courage make an appearance again. Swift wind. As the last words are spoken, the air around the wizard seems to chill and becomes slightly opaque. Beyond this glass, all moves very slowly. The aura travels with the wizard as he begins to move. For 1 turn, the wizard and a number of others may move at a very rapid rate. Roll a die and have the result. Round up. That many characters are moved either a maximum of 18 squares exploration turn or may double their speed in a combat turn. Courage. The magic that powers the spell is drawn from very dangerous sources indeed. Such that that wizard will actually see ghostly fell creatures from the corner of his eyes, slavering from his body and soul, reaching talons for his flesh. Then in an instant, all fear is gone. The wizard may cast the spell on himself or any model in his death zone. The model's bravery is automatically 12 until the beginning of the next exploration turn. But we have not looked at what bravery is. Bacon says, I also like the implication to the rest of the setting with magic essentially being the attempted manipulation of ruinous powers. All of the ancient races hate that humanity is so cavalier with magic. Sable says, Lamentations is much the same way. Magic is weird, unpredictable, and terrifying. If you're casting it, stuff is already foobar, and you do not want to fumble. Mike says, I wonder if these spell components are findable during the gameplay. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why they couldn't be. It doesn't say that it should be. In fact, now we're going to the Game Master. So that's actually the entire magic. I didn't take a whole lot of notes here. Maybe you go back and take some notes here on magic. I don't see why they couldn't be. But maybe there's something in the Game Master section about returning spell components to the wizard. Because, yeah, the spell components are the constraint to casting. Let's see. Okay, so magic is kind of, but it's kind of straightforward here. So magic, we have magic spells. We don't have any kind of system for their creation. We've got magic spells here in a list that are pretty powerful. Mike is right. So the constraint on the casting. Here's our wizard casting death here, or whatever it is. So so constraint on casting is spell components. So it's a used resource. You're not just doing mana or magic power. Now I like that. See, because I think that in the original HeroQuest, magic is one of the weak parts of the game. We always have. Because you've got the wizard with these spell cards. They are one-time use. Which often I find has the effect of making the wizard play very conservatively and not cast the spells, because you never know what's going to be around the next door or whatever. And I find that the wizard is better played if the wizard player is more free with their spells, because there are only going to be so many turns. That's the issue. There are only so many turns. If you always, I could cast the spell, but I'll hold. And even if in the final battle, you're only going to have so many turns anyway, so it's not that you're going to be able to cast 12 spells in the final battle. So I always encourage people to be a bit more liberal with their spells. But the once it's gone kind of means that people want to save them. And then also, once they're gone, the wizard can be effectively useless. And some people want to be able to cast Fire of Wrath again. So this potentially allows you to do that. It's not exactly, it's interesting that it's a hybrid kind of system between, so some components are multi-use or used for multiple spells. So it's not as general. So it's an interesting system, I think, because it's not as general as a mana system, where every spell like draws from a certain amount of mana, and so use your mana on whatever spells you want multiple times. It's not as general as a mana system. It's not as constrained as a memorization system. As you go, it's really it really sits in the middle of those two. When you start the game with those 4 spells, it's kind of like a memorization system. They're fire and forget. All right, which ones do you want? So it's kind of like the spell cards, but as you gain more, you get more you're in a hybrid situation. You got more flexibility than a memorization system, but not as much as a general mana system. So that's interesting. But you also still have to roll to cast. Your spell components are not used up if you fail, right? Casting a spell uses up the relevant spell components. The wizard player should cross off used components from his character sheet. The spell book shows what effect the spell has. Did we ever completely say that? Spell components. Casting a spell uses up the relevant spell components. The rules for certain spells say the wizard must make an intelligence test to cast the spell. Roll the dice. Must make an intelligence test in order to cast the spell. Roll a die and compare the result to the wizard's intelligence. If the roll is equal to or less than the intelligence, he has passed the test. The roll is greater than the intelligence, he has failed. I would guess the spell component is not used up if you fail. Let's see what people are saying over here. Bacon says, yes, I like spells with nuance. What components are you consuming for what spells? Here are varied effects they will produce. Not enough magic systems are customizable. They should be. And of course, a lot of that's world specific too. Like if you're trying to capture what type of magic is in this world. I mean, this is obviously they used a few paragraphs here describing the system in universe. Hey, Joel. Joe says, are we talking about Monopoly, my favorite tabletop role-playing system? Here's to you, Joe. Here's drink to you. See you later, Lynn. Hey, good morning, Nathaniel. Good to see you. But you rolled a cast. So looking at that, it doesn't explicitly say, but I think I would say if you have to burn one of your spell components by failing the test, that seems like it would suck. Okay, so I mean, with magic systems in general, magic systems have to represent the world they come from. From the world building, need to represent of the world. So it seems like from the conversation today, this does. People were enjoying the feel of Warhammer magic, magic in the Warhammer world. So I guess they did that. It was hard to say like, hey, what's a good magic system? Well, good magic system to me is relative. It involves invoking the feel of the world that you are in. So, but you could say what's a good magic system for just a general adventure game where you're going into a dungeon and fighting orcs? What are you going to want the wizard to do? You're going to want the wizard. I would say in that kind of game, like HeroQuest and Advanced HeroQuest, you want the wizard to be casting spells. You want them to be useful and combat oriented. So it looks like, in HeroQuest, like they got some problems here. I haven't played this one, but in Advanced HeroQuest, they take a different approach that could solve some of the problems. That's not very many spells, though. You're not going to be casting very many spells. You've got a lot more spells in the original HeroQuest. You only have 4 spells, and you're only going to be able to cast 4 spells during the game. But then again, like using the fireball template and stuff like that, that's powerful. So I don't know your ratio between spell casting spells and the number of turns you've got, but you are constrained there. But maybe that they're more interesting helps you out. I don't know. That's not as complicated a system. There wasn't as much to say about that, I don't think, as there was about combat. We talked a lot about combat. There were a lot of rules for combat, and then we even talked about that again this morning. At the beginning of the show today, I don't think there's as much to say about magic. Come up with a list of spells, components, roll to cast. But could work. Sable says, I really like what we've looked at White Hack. I can't remember. I might have to look back at that. Really like White Hack spell system, highly customizable. Let's see. We've been going for an hour here, so we're getting to Game Master. I'm gonna put my notes on Magic over here. We're gonna end up with some nice stack of notes for game design. The Game Master. Let's just scroll through here a little bit. This does say, warning, unless you're about to act as the game master in the game, don't read any further. This information is for the game master only. Heroes to read the pages beyond this point will turn into frogs and aged 100 years. You have been warned. We might still look at that because I want to know about like the dungeon counters, how it's using those hazards here. Oh, yeah, and different types of objects in dungeons. Okay, that looks like it's going to be Wednesday. Sounds like where we're going. Mold. Look, mold. The room is covered with mold. So it looks like we'll take a look at this on Wednesday. Oh, we're also getting into treasure. So that's where we're going. Let's see. All right, I am out of here. I'm going to go try to get a bunch of stuff done. I'm feeling good today. So hopefully you are too. Go forth, be creative, be constructive, be productive. I will see everybody in the Discord server and on Wednesday live on the stream. Later, everybody.